is to seek to obliterate our historical consciousness. We are suffering from that, brothers and sisters. That is not over. It is not over with all the things that we talk about, with all the things we think we've done, with what many think is this great achievement of having the so-called leader of the United States be someone who is partly African. Our people are suffering from a lack of historical consciousness. Or we wouldn't think that was a great achievement. And so because of his belief in this, he embarked on the intense and demanding work of reconstructing that which had been derailed, so to speak, okay, off the track. And it caused what he calls a gap in the tracks. So the tracks, you know how it is for a train. If there's a space there, that's it. Okay? He felt that we could put that back together. And he felt that in order to do that, we need to construct an African social science. Who talked about that? Who called for it? Bobby Wright. He called for the construction of an African social science, which is our job, Baba Baruti, to get these young people to do that. Okay? They can't leave all this work to us anymore. We get, you know what I'm saying? We need to be able to, okay. So y'all hear me, because I'm really speaking to you. Young people in here today are supposed to be serious students. We're passing it on to you. There's work that you have to do. You have to construct. You have to reconstruct, and you have to invent, and you have to create. You cannot just follow along with what's already been in the past. Jump didn't do it. You can't do it if you care about him, which is you say you do, okay? Which leads us into this symposium and the importance of it. Because it is a form of ancestor communion. Ancestor communion, which is the universal spiritual practice of all African people. That's the part I focus on, ancestor communion. Because it is so culturally powerful and politically charged. Ancestor communion tells you who you are. And it tells us who we are collectively as a people. And it tells us what to do. You see? Can't be a people without that kind of sense. It gives you an historical sense. So we're doing ancestor communion today. I wanted to call this, in one sense, we could look at the many faces of Cheikh Anta Diop in terms of so much work he did in so many different areas. However, there's one face. It all comes together because he's really consistent in what he's doing. Now, my challenge today was how does one discuss Diop's impact and talk about the contemporary relevance of his work in a cursory manner? How do you do that? How do you do that in a short period of time? You know, how do you give a brief overview? There's so much, and he did so much, and he was so thorough, and he was so detailed, and so serious in his work. A brief overview does not seem to be enough. And in terms of the reciprocity that is ancestor communion, it doesn't seem right. You know, he was so careful and thorough in his work. So when we talk about him, in terms of ma'at and reciprocity, we need to be in our work as careful, as serious, as thorough. Okay? So it becomes a model he becomes almost in himself a paradigm for, again, young people doing the work. Okay? All right. But at any rate, I'm still left with the task of presenting this brief overview. So what I'll do is touch on some of the aspects of Diop's work which have, I feel, impacted our movement for to build a Pan-African world order. Theoretically, his work impacted us. Pragmatically, ideologically. In other words, he helped to influence method and theory in African studies. At the same time, that part of our work, our movement, that has been it's been deficient. It needs to be stronger, and that is the practical side. Strategic side. To operationalize the theories. Diop did that. Talked about that. Worked to have that happen. Where are we doing that? Just an aside, because this would get everybody involved and stuff. And this is family, so we could just talk. And as things come to me, I can say them. There's recently been this archaeological site in, I guess, well, it's in Kemet, but it would be the southern area, right? With this Russian woman heading the project. And this discoveries there, everybody's excited about. We are excited about it. You know, African people are excited about it because it brings evidence about the 25th dynasty, famous black dynasty. Very important, very exciting. However, my question is, what difference is it going to make in our movement? And what I'm saying is, family, that we need to start always putting things into the context of what it is we need to do, what it is we need to build. It is not enough just to know this stuff and, you know, even be able to teach it if you're not going that next step, as Diop did, to say, this means that we should be doing this, or this supports this work. Always, what are we doing? What's the work? Okay, so I'm not that excited. If a bunch of us get in the room and we start talking about the 25th dynasty, if nobody is saying, what's the relevance for now? Again, you young people, that's where I want your heads to be going. Okay, very, very practical, very pragmatic. Okay, so let me just touch on some things. I'm going to talk about briefly, and I'll just be moving from one thing to the other, the two-cradle theory of Diop's work. And remember, what I'm trying to do is to show the impact of these things and the significance of it. So it's not just theory, but what did it do for us? The term two-cradle actually comes from Brother Wobogo in California, San Francisco. Worked with Wade Nobles and others out there. Diop didn't say the two-cradle theory. He introduced those concepts, northern and southern cradle, in cultural unity of black Africa. Okay? This may have been my first introduction to him. One of the works that Baba Obadeli referred to, Let the Circle Be Unbroken, is about worldview. And I think that the cradle theory begins to move people